Commander Susan Blackwell stood frozen at the viewport of the Earth Alliance science vessel, Horizon. Her blue eyes widened as she stared at the floating debris. What was once a thriving world now existed as nothing but rocks and dust. The Norathi. Homeworld was gone. Captain Morgan needs to see this, she whispered. Susan's boots made soft sounds against the metal floor as she hurried to the bridge. The door slid open, revealing Captain Greg Morgan bent over a star chart with Communications Officer Diane Lewis. "Captain," Susan said, her voice shaking, "we've confirmed it. The Norathi homeworld has been destroyed. There are no survivors." Greg straightened up slowly. At 53, he had seen much during his 30 years in the Earth Alliance, but nothing like this. He ran a hand through his gray-streaked hair. "Are we sure it was the Velrans?" he asked. Susan nodded. "The energy signature matches their planet-killer weapons, and we found this." She handed him a small data drive. "It's a recording from a Norathi escape pod. The pod was damaged, but the recording survived." Greg inserted the drive into the console. A holographic image appeared, showing a tall, slender being with silver skin and large eyes. The Norathi was bleeding from several wounds. "To whoever finds this," the being said in a weak voice. "I am Philoran, lead scholar of the Norathi Council. The Velran Imperium demanded our knowledge vaults. When we refused to give them our ancestors' wisdom, the image flickered. They said we were not worthy of existence if we would not serve their needs. They started with our outer colonies. We sent messages begging for help, but no one came. Now they have reached our homeworld. If anyone receives this, please tell the galaxy what happened here. Tell them that..." The recording ended abruptly. Greg's face turned hard as stone. "How many?" he asked quietly. "Based on census data, approximately 12 billion, replied Chief Science Officer Alan Prescott from his station. The older man's voice was hollow, his normally bright eyes dim behind his glasses. Silence fell over the bridge. 12 billion lives, an entire civilization wiped out. Diane broke the silence. "Captain, the Velrans signed the Galactic Peace Treaty 5 years ago. They promised to end their expansion." "Treaties mean nothing to them," Greg said bitterly. "We've suspected that for years, but the Alliance Council insisted on diplomacy." He had been one of those voices arguing for continued diplomatic relations. The thought made his stomach turn. "We need to document everything," he decided. "Alan, I want complete scans of the debris field. See if you can find any evidence that might have survived. Diane, prepare our most secure channel to Earth. Susan, you and I will draft the report." The crew moved with purpose, their training taking over despite their horror. 3 hours later, Susan and Greg reviewed the evidence they had gathered. Images of destroyed Norathi outposts, analysis of weapon signatures, the final recording. Population data showing a thriving species reduced to scattered refugees, if any had escaped at all. "The Velrans will say it was an internal matter," Greg said. "They'll claim the Norathi were developing weapons or planning attacks." Susan's jaw tightened. "The Norathi were philosophers and artists. Their biggest export was literature." "I know," Greg replied, "but the Velrans control major trade routes. Many Alliance members won't want to risk economic hardship by confronting them. So genocide becomes acceptable if standing against it might hurt profits." Susan's voice rose with anger. Greg placed a hand on her shoulder. "No. Never. But we need to be prepared for the fight ahead. This evidence has to be irrefutable." The ship's alarm suddenly blared. "Captain, to the bridge." Alan's voice came over the intercom. Greg and Susan rushed back to find the crew at battle stations. 3 Velran warships just appeared on long-range sensors, Alan reported. "They're heading straight for us." Greg took his command chair. "They must have detected our scans. How did they get here so fast?" "Unknown, sir," Diane answered. "But they're coming in fast, weapons charged." Greg's mind raced. The Horizon was a science vessel with minimal defensive capabilities. They were no match for Velran warships. "Set course for the Alliance border." "Maximum speed," he ordered. The ship lurched as it turned away from the destroyed planet. "Sir, they're gaining," Alan reported. "And they've locked weapons." Evasive maneuvers, Greg commanded. Diane, start transmitting our findings to Earth. Priority 1 encryption. The ship shuddered as the first Velran shot grazed their shields. Shields at 60%, Alan called out. Susan gripped her console. They don't want witnesses, she said, just like with the Norathi. Another hit rocked the ship. Sparks flew from a nearby panel. Shields failing, Alan reported. Engine. Damage on Deck 4. Greg knew they wouldn't make it to the border. Diane, status on the transmission? Only partial data sent, she replied, working frantically at her station. The Velrans are jamming our signals. Greg made his decision. Reroute all power from life support and shields to the communications array. We need to get this data to Earth. Sir, without shields, Alan began. I know, Greg cut him off. Do it. The lights dimmed as power was diverted. Another hit sent crew members flying across the bridge. Transmission at 70%, Diane reported, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. The ship rocked again. A support beam crashed down, narrowly missing Susan. 90%, Diane called out. The view screen showed the Velran ships, closing in, their weapons glowing as they prepared to fire again. Complete, Diane shouted. Earth has received the data package. Greg nodded, then opened a channel. This is Captain Greg Morgan of the Earth Alliance science vessel Horizon. We have just transmitted evidence of the Velran genocide against the Norathi people. Susan moved to stand beside him, her face determined despite the chaos around them. Add this to the transmission, she said to Diane, then spoke clearly. They've killed billions. Don't let our deaths be in vain. The final Velran blast tore through the ship's hull. The bridge exploded in fire and debris. In the blackness of space, the horizon broke apart. Small flames quickly extinguished in the vacuum. The Velran ship circled once, confirming the destruction, then vanished back into hyperspace. They didn't know that the crew's final message was already racing toward Earth, carrying the truth about what happened to the Norathi, and about what happened to those who discovered it. Back on Earth, a communications officer's console beeped with an incoming priority transmission. The evidence that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever had arrived. Ambassador Richard Powell sat in his darkened office, the glow from his screen reflecting off his tired face. His hand trembled as he finished watching the transmission from the horizon for the third time. The faces of Captain Morgan and Commander Blackwell stared back at him, their final words echoing in his mind. They've killed billions, don't let our deaths be in vain. Richard took a deep breath and pressed the direct line to the President's office. Madam President, he said when the call connected. I need to see you immediately. It's about the Velrans. 1 hour later, Richard stood in the Oval Office. President. Olivia Grant sat behind her desk, her normally composed face showing signs of shock as she reviewed the evidence. 12 billion, she whispered. An entire civilization. She looked up at Richard. And they destroyed our science vessel too. How many crew? 137, Richard replied. No survivors. President Grant stood and walked to the window overlooking the Washington Monument. At 62, she had led Earth through difficult diplomatic situations before, but nothing like this. Call an emergency meeting of the Security Council, she ordered. 1 hour. The Security Council chamber buzzed with tension as the 12 members took their seats. President Grant sat at the head of the table with Richard beside her. The evidence from the horizon played on the large screen for all to see. When it ended, silence filled the room. Admiral Peter Donovan was the first to speak. The veteran naval officer's face was red with anger. This is an act of war, he said firmly, not just against the Norathi but against Earth. They destroyed one of our ships. And what would you have us do, Admiral? Asked Council Member Frank Warren. The Velran military is 3 times our size. Their technology is more advanced. So, we do nothing, General Catherine Martinez asked sharply. The head of Earth Ground Forces leaned forward. Just like we did nothing when they took the Krillian mining colonies, or when they annexed the Bentari system. Diplomacy has kept Earth safe for 200 years, Frank responded. We're known as mediators. not warriors. And the Velrans have taken that as weakness, Catherine shot back. This genocide is proof they never respected our diplomatic efforts. President Grant raised her hand for silence. What options do we have, Admiral Donovan? Admiral Donovan looked to Chief Intelligence Officer Jason Clark, who nodded slightly. Madam President, the Admiral began, for the past 15 years we've been developing advanced weapon systems, quietly. Several council members looked surprised. What kind of weapons? Asked Council Member Sofia Rodriguez. Jason Clark stood up. As head of intelligence, few knew the full extent of his operations. Gravity manipulation devices, he said. Jump drive technology that can bypass Velran defense grids. Cloaking systems. We've kept these projects classified even from most of the council. That's against protocol, Frank protested. It was authorized by 3 consecutive administrations, Jason replied calmly. Including yours, Madam President. President Grant nodded. A contingency plan. One I hoped we'd never need. How combat-ready are these systems? Catherine asked. We can deploy within 2 weeks, Admiral Donovan answered. But we would still be outnumbered. Richard Powell cleared his throat. What about the coalition? Other species who have suffered Velran aggression might join us. That would take time to organize, Sophia pointed out. Meanwhile, the Velrans might realize we know about the genocide and attack first. Or they might destroy more worlds, Catherine added grimly. The debate continued for hours. Some argued for immediate military action. Others pushed for diplomatic sanctions. A few even suggested hiding the evidence to avoid conflict. As the arguments grew heated, President Grant stood up, silencing the room. 2 centuries ago, she began, humanity nearly destroyed itself in war. We learned from that horror. We built a society that values peace, that seeks to resolve conflicts through understanding rather than force. She walked around the table, looking at each council member. We carried those values to the stars. We positioned ourselves as mediators, as the conscience of the galactic community. And for many years that approach served us well. She stopped next to the screen showing the destroyed Narathi homeworld. But today we face a truth we cannot ignore. There are those who see our peaceful nature not as wisdom, but as weakness, who take our desire for diplomacy as permission to commit atrocities. Her voice grew stronger. The Velrans did not just destroy the Narathi, they killed our people too. They believed they could do so without consequences. President Grant returned to her chair and sat down. For 2 centuries, we've tried to be the galaxy's conscience. Today, we become its justice. The room was silent as her words sank in. Admiral Donovan, begin deployment of our special weapons systems. General Martinez, prepare your forces. Jason, I want all intelligence on Velran. Military positions. Richard, make discreet contact with potential coalition members. She looked around the table. As of this moment, Earth is at war with the Velran Imperium. 2 days later, Ambassador Richard Powell sat across from Velran Ambassador Zareth in a private room at the Earth Alliance headquarters. The tall, gray-skinned alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he studied Richard. My government is concerned about your sudden recall of diplomatic staff from our territories, Zareth said, his translator making his clicking language understandable. Have we caused offense? Richard slid a data pad across the table. This contains evidence of the destruction of the Narathi homeworld by Velran forces. It also shows the destruction of our science vessel Horizon. All 4 of Zareth's eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. The Narathi matter was an internal security issue, he said smoothly. And we have no record of any Earth vessel in that sector. Of course you don't, Richard replied. Because you destroyed it along with all hands. Zareth's skin darkened, a sign of anger in his species. These are serious accusations, Ambassador Powell. The Velran Imperium has always respected Earth's neutrality. We are neutral no longer, Richard said, standing up. The Earth Alliance formally severs all diplomatic relations with the Velran Imperium, effective immediately. You and your staff have 24 hours to leave Earth space. This is a mistake, Zareth hissed. You do not understand the power you are challenging. Richard walked to the door but turned back one last time. No, Ambassador, you do not understand the power you have awakened. Humanity has been peaceful by choice, not because we are incapable of war. As the Velran diplomatic shuttle left Earth orbit the next day, military vessels began to emerge from hidden bases throughout the solar system. The Earth Alliance fleet, long thought to be mainly ceremonial, revealed its true strength as ships with advanced technology joined formation. Across Earth, factories shifted to war production. Military training centers filled with volunteers. The long peace was over. Humanity was going to war. Lead engineer Stephanie Harris stood in the middle of the massive factory floor, watching as workers assembled parts for the new gravity weapons. Just 3 weeks ago, this facility had been making passenger shuttles. Now it produced tools of war. How many can we make per day? She asked the foreman beside her. 15, he replied. Maybe 20 if we add another shift. Stephanie nodded. Add the shift. Admiral Donovan wants 50 by the end of the week. All across Earth and its colonies, the same transformation was happening. Farms grew extra food for the military. Shipyards built warships instead of cargo vessels. Schools trained medics and communications experts. After 2 centuries of peace, humanity was preparing for war. In the training center at Luna Base, Commander Eric Patterson watched as his special forces team ran through combat simulations. They moved quickly through the mock Velran ship, taking down targets with precision. Lieutenant Melissa Wong led the second team. She was small but fast, and her tactical mind was the best Eric had ever seen. She finished the course 30 seconds ahead of the others. Still too slow, she said as she removed her helmet. The Velrans will move faster than these simulations show. Then we'll adjust the simulations, Eric replied. The real Velrans won't know what hit them. He had spent years studying Velran tactics, preparing for a day he hoped would never come. Now that it had, he felt a strange sense of purpose. The Norathi deserved justice. The crew of the Horizon deserved justice. One more run, he told his teams. This time I want you to try Melissa's flanking strategy. In the diplomatic wing of the Earth Alliance headquarters, Nathan Rivera prepared for his riskiest mission yet. As a diplomat, he had visited dozens of worlds and made connections everywhere. Now those connections would be tested. The transport leaves in 1 hour, his assistant told him. Are you sure about this? If the Velrans catch you. They won't, Nathan said confidently. He tucked a small device into his pocket. And if they do, this will erase all data before they can get anything useful. His mission was simple but dangerous. Visit 7 worlds that had suffered Velran aggression and build a coalition against them. Some of these worlds had already been conquered. Others had surrendered to avoid destruction. All had reasons to hate the Velrans. The president is counting on you, his assistant said. We need allies. Nathan nodded. And they need hope. That's what I'm bringing them. Hope that the Velrans can be defeated. As Nathan's transport left Earth orbit, another ship was arriving. The sleek Velran diplomatic vessel moved slowly toward the docking bay, its weapons powered down as required. Inside, the main diplomatic reception hall, President Olivia Grant waited alone. The usual honor guards were absent. The traditional welcome music was silent. She had ordered a simple room with just 2 chairs. The doors opened, and Ambassador Krell entered. He was taller than Zareth had been, his gray skin darker and his 4 eyes set wider apart. He was also higher ranked, a sign that the Velrans were taking the situation seriously. President Grant, he said with a slight bow, I come with a message from the High Command. I'll hear it, she replied, not offering him a seat. Krell seemed amused by the cold reception. The Velran Imperium has observed your military buildup with concern. We wish to remind Earth that any hostile action against Velran interests will be met with overwhelming force. He paused, all 4 eyes blinking in sequence. Your world is beautiful. It would be a shame to see it reduced to ash. Olivia did not flinch at the threat. Is that all? The High Command offers a path to peace, Krell continued. Cease your military preparations. Hand over any refugees from Norathi space. Resume normal trade relations. Do this, and we will consider the matter closed. I've studied your history of genocide across 3 sectors, Olivia said calmly. Humanity will no longer stand idle. You have 3 days to withdraw from Norathi space and begin reparations, or face the consequences. Krell laughed, a harsh sound that his translator couldn't quite make natural. Consequences? Your species has never fought an interstellar war. You have been an interesting cultural curiosity, nothing more. He moved closer, using his height to try to intimidate her. The Norathi refused to serve a purpose in our empire. They were removed, as all useless things are removed. If Earth chooses the same path, the result will be the same. 3 days, Olivia repeated. After that, the Velran Imperium will learn what humanity is truly capable of. Empty threats from a weak species, Krell sneered. The High Command will be amused. After Krell left, Olivia contacted Admiral Donovan. Move up the timeline, she ordered. I want the fleet ready in 2 days. 2 days? The Admiral asked, surprised. We planned for a week. Plans change, she replied. The Velrans are going to attack. I saw it in their ambassador's eyes. We need to strike first. Across the solar system, the order went out. Workers in factories put in extra hours. Weapons testing was accelerated. Troops boarded ships ahead of schedule. On the research station orbiting Jupiter, Dr. William Carter worked frantically to finish the jump drive calibrations. The technology would allow Earth ships to appear inside Velran territory without warning, bypassing their defensive perimeter. It's not ready, he told Admiral Donovan over the comlink. The calculations are still off by 3%. 3% is close enough, the Admiral replied. We're out of time. Dr. Carter wanted to argue but knew the stakes. I'll have it ready, he promised. At the fleet assembly point behind Saturn, Admiral Laura Bennett reviewed the attack plan. Her flagship, the EA Defiance, would lead the first wave. 50 ships all equipped with the new technology. Remember, she told her captains, we target military installations only. We are not the Velrans. We don't kill civilians. The captains nodded in agreement. Each of their ships carried a recorded message from President Grant to be broadcast on all frequencies when they arrived. A final warning and a statement of purpose. The Velrans think they know us, Laura said. They think we're weak because we've been peaceful. They're about to learn how wrong they are. As the Earth fleet prepared to depart, Nathan Rivera made contact with his first potential ally. On a world half-conquered by the Velrans, he met with resistance leaders in a hidden bunker. Earth is going to war against the Velrans, he told them. We ask for your help. The alien leader studied him with 3 golden eyes. We have fought the Velrans for years. They are strong. Together we are stronger, Nathan replied. Earth has weapons the Velrans have never seen. We have ships that can bypass their defenses. What we need is information. Details about their bases, their movements, their supply lines. The alien was silent for a long moment. The Velrans killed half my people, he finally said. If Earth truly fights them, we will help. Nathan smiled. Then let me tell you about our plan. On Earth, in the underground command center, President Grant watched as the countdown reached 0. The first wave of Earth's fleet vanished into jump space headed for Velran territory. The response to genocide had begun. Admiral Laura Bennett stood on the bridge of her flagship, the EA Defiance. The ship hummed around her as the jump drive powered up. 50 Earth vessels moved into formation behind her, each carrying weapons that had been secret until now. All ships report ready, Admiral, said her second-in-command, Captain Paul Wilson. Laura took a deep breath. This would be the first time humans fought an interstellar war, the first time they used their full military power. Once they jumped, there would be no going back. Send the signal, she ordered. Jump in 3 minutes. Across the fleet, crews made final preparations. Weapons were armed, shields were raised. And on each ship, A message from President Grant was loaded into the communication systems, ready to broadcast. 1 minute, Captain Wilson announced. Laura thought of the Norathi, 12 billion lives wiped out. She thought of the crew of the Horizon, killed for discovering the truth. She thought of Earth, peaceful for 2 centuries, but never defenseless. Jump, she commanded. Space twisted around the Earth fleet. For a moment they existed nowhere, caught between normal space and the strange dimension the jump drive used. Then reality snapped back into place. The fleet appeared directly above the Velran military shipyards at Doral Prime. The massive space station where the Velrans built their warships hung in orbit around a red giant star. Dozens of half-built ships surrounded it. For 10 seconds nothing happened. The Velrans were too shocked to react. No enemy had ever reached Doral Prime. Their defense perimeter was supposed to be unbreakable. Broadcast the message, Laura ordered. Target weapons on the shipyard power cores and defense systems only. President Grant's voice echoed across all frequencies, in both Earth Standard and the Velran language. This is President Olivia Grant of the Earth Alliance. We fought among ourselves for millennia before learning restraint. You mistake that restraint for weakness. This is your only warning. The Velran stations finally began to respond. Alarms blared. Defense weapons powered up. Comm channels filled. With panicked orders. They're scrambling fighters, Captain Wilson reported, and powering up the station's main weapons. Execute firing plan Alpha, Laura commanded. The Earth fleet opened fire, but instead of conventional weapons, gravity manipulation devices activated. The space around 3 key sections of the shipyard began to warp and twist. Metal groaned as incredible forces pulled at the structure. On the nearby planet, Strategics, Commander Daniel Ross monitored the attack from a cloaked scout ship. When the gravity weapons had done their work, he gave the order for the second phase. Initiate Operation Fallen Star, he said into his comm. From the Earth fleet, a wave of smaller ships detached and moved toward the damaged shipyard. Each carried a specialized gravity bomb designed to create a controlled singularity, a miniature black hole that would last just long enough to collapse the target before dissipating. The bombs deployed. Space folded in on itself. The massive shipyard, pride of the Velran military, began to break apart as sections were pulled into localized gravity wells. The Velran fighters tried to respond, but they had trained to fight conventional enemies. They had no defense against weapons that manipulated gravity itself. Sir, a Velran commander reported to the station chief. Half the shipyard is gone. The humans. They have technology we've never seen. The station chief stared in disbelief at his monitors. Impossible. They are diplomats, not warriors. Look for yourself, the commander insisted. They appeared out of nowhere. Our outer defenses never detected them. As the shipyard collapsed, Laura ordered the fleet to move to their second target. Once again, the jump drives engaged and the Earth vessels vanished. They reappeared at Velran Military Base Krev 4, the staging area for the attack on the Norathi homeworld. The base orbited a dead moon, its surface covered with landing pads and weapons installations. Again, the president's message played. Again, the gravity weapons fired. Meanwhile, on the surface of the moon, Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Harding led a different kind of attack. While the fleet engaged the orbital defenses, Kevin and his Special Forces team had secretly landed on the far side of the moon. Move fast, he told his soldiers over the secure comm link. We have 30 minutes to complete the mission. The team advanced toward a large structure built into the moon's surface. According to intelligence from Nathan, Rivera's new allies, this was a prison where the Velrans kept captives from conquered worlds. If any Norathi had survived, they might be here. Lieutenant Melissa Wong's tactical plan worked perfectly. The team bypassed the outer guards and security systems using technology that disrupted Velran sensors. Door secured, reported Sergeant Joe Martinez at point position. Ready to breach. Kevin gave the signal. The door opened, and the team moved in. Inside, they found cells filled with aliens of various species. Some had been there for years. In the lowest level, they discovered what they had hoped for. A group of 23 Norathi, thin and weak but alive. "We're from Earth," Kevin told them as his team broke open the cells. "We're here to help you." One Narathi stepped forward. "Earth? The diplomat world? Why would you risk war with the Velrans for us?" "Because what happened to your people was wrong," Kevin answered simply, "and Earth stands against wrong." As Kevin and his team evacuated the prisoners, the space battle continued above them. The Velran base was now half destroyed, its defenses in ruins. On the Velran homeworld, Supreme General Vrax received the reports with growing rage. 2 major military installations attacked without warning, new technology that bypassed their best defenses, and all from a species they had dismissed as weak. "How did they develop these weapons without our knowledge?" he demanded of his intelligence. "Chief, they hid them well," the intelligence chief admitted. "We thought their factories made civilian goods. Their research focused on medicine and art. We never looked deeper." Vrax slammed his fist down. "Gather the fleet, all of it. We will crush this human rebellion before it spreads." "Sir," his aide said hesitantly, "the humans are only targeting military installations. They're avoiding civilian targets. Perhaps we should consider their demands." "Weakness," Vrax snarled. "They lack the will to do what is necessary. That will be their downfall." Back on the Earth fleet, Admiral Bennett received the report from Lieutenant Colonel Harding. 23 Norathi rescued, plus 142 prisoners from other worlds, she read aloud. "Well done, Colonel." "Thank you, Admiral," Kevin replied over the comm. "They have information about other prison sites, and the Norathi want to help us fight." Laura nodded. "Bring them home. We're moving to Phase 3. Yao. Earth fleet jumped again, this time to a Velran fuel processing station. As they arrived, Laura looked at the stars on her view screen. "The Velrans thought they knew us," she said quietly. "They saw our art, our music, our diplomacy, and thought that was all we were." Captain Wilson stood beside her. "They never looked at our history, at how hard we fought each other before we found peace. A mistake they won't make again," Laura replied, as she gave the order to attack. Across Velran space, the word spread. Earth had gone to war, and they were winning. 3 months had passed since Earth launched its first strike. The war had spread across multiple star systems as more worlds joined the fight against the Velran Imperium. Planets that had suffered under Velran rule for generations now saw hope. For the first time, Admiral Laura Bennett stood on the bridge of the EA Defiance looking at the tactical display. The combined fleet, Earthships alongside vessels from 7 allied species, had pushed deep into Velran territory. They had destroyed shipyards, weapons factories, and military bases, always careful to avoid civilian targets. "Admiral," said Captain Paul Wilson, "the Velran fleet is gathering near their homeworld. Our scouts count over 300 warships." Laura nodded. This was what they had been waiting for. Supreme General Vrax had finally called back all his forces to make a last stand. "Send word to all allied ships," she ordered. "It's time for the final push." On Earth, President Olivia Grant met with her War Council. The large table in the underground command center was now ringed with both human officers and representatives from allied worlds. "The cost has been high," General Catherine Martinez reported. "We've lost 63 ships and nearly 8,000 personnel." Olivia closed her eyes briefly. Each death weighed on her, even though she knew the cause was just. "The Velrans have lost much more," Admiral Peter Donovan added. "Over half their military infrastructure is gone, 7 major fleet bases destroyed. Their supply lines are in chaos." "And the coalition grows stronger," said Nathan Rivera. The diplomat looked tired after months of secret meetings and dangerous travel. 3 more worlds joined us yesterday. The Velrans are running out of allies." "What about civilians?" Olivia asked. "On both sides?" "Earth civilian casualties are minimal," Catherine answered. "The Velrans tried to hit our colonies, but our defensive systems held. On their side, we've kept our promise, no civilian targets." Olivia stood up and walked to the large map showing the current battle lines. "Then it's time to end this. Send the message to Admiral Bennett. Offer the terms we discussed." In space, the combined fleet jumped one last time, appearing in orbit, around the Velran homeworld. Before them spread the entire remaining Velran navy, a massive wall of warships protecting their capital planet. "They've committed everything they have left," Laura observed, "just as we hoped." On the main Velran flagship, Supreme General Vrax watched the human fleet appear. His 4 eyes narrowed in hatred. "They dare come here?" he snarled. "To our sacred homeworld?" "Sir," said his tactical officer, "they're broadcasting a message." "Ignore it," Vrax ordered. "Prepare all weapons. We will crush them here and now." The tactical officer hesitated. "Sir, many of our ship captains are receiving the broadcast directly. I can't block it completely." Vrax growled in frustration but nodded. "Play it." Admiral Bennett's face appeared on the screen. "Supreme General Vrax, this is Admiral Laura Bennett of the Earth Alliance. We offer you these terms: complete surrender of all Velran military forces, war crimes trials for those responsible for the genocide of the Norathi and other atrocities, a permanent monitoring presence in Velran space to ensure peace." She paused before continuing. "If you accept these terms, there will be no further bloodshed. If you refuse, we will have no choice but to continue this conflict to its end. You have 1 hour to respond." "Surrender?" Vrax laughed bitterly. "Never. The Velran Imperium does not surrender." He turned to his communications officer. "Send the attack order. All ships. Maximum firepower." Before the officer could comply, the door to the bridge slid open. 7 high-ranking Velrans entered, flanked by armed guards. "What is the meaning of this?" Vrax demanded. Minister Kelvor, head of the Velran civilian government, stepped forward. "Supreme General Vrax, you are relieved of command by order of the High Council." "Treason!" Vrax reached for his weapon, but the guards were faster. "Not treason," Kelvor replied calmly. "Survival. This war you started has cost us too much. Our economy is in ruins. Our colonies are in revolt. And for what? The destruction of a peaceful race that posed no threat to us." He turned to the communications officer. "Send word to the Earth Fleet. We wish to discuss their terms." From the bridge of the Defiance, Laura watched as the Velran fleet powered down their weapons. A message came through from the Velran homeworld. "They want to talk," Captain Wilson reported, surprise in his voice. Laura allowed herself a small smile. "It seems there are still some rational minds among the Velrans. Open a channel." 1 year later, President Olivia Grant stood on a platform in the newly built Galactic Council chamber. Representatives from 27 species filled the hall, including a delegation of Velrans led by Prime Minister Kelvor. The Velran Imperium was now the Velran Republic, its military reduced and closely monitored. "Today marks a new beginning," Olivia said to the assembled delegates, "not just for Earth or the Velrans, but for all sentient beings who wish to live in peace." She looked at the small group of Norathi seated in a place of honor. Only a few thousand had survived the genocide, rescued from remote colonies and prison camps, but they were rebuilding, with help from Earth and other allies. "We learned a difficult lesson," she continued, "that there must be a balance between respect for other cultures and the moral imperative to act when genocide threatens. For 2 centuries, Earth chose diplomacy and peace. When that failed, we did not hesitate to fight for what was right." After the ceremony, Olivia walked with Admiral Bennett through the memorial garden outside the council building. At its center stood a statue of the science vessel Horizon, its crew honored as the first casualties in the war that had changed the galaxy. "The first Susan Blackwell-class ship launches tomorrow," Laura told the president. "It's not a warship. It's a rapid response vessel designed to detect and prevent atrocities before they reach the level of genocide." Olivia nodded with approval. Commander Blackwell would have liked that. The next day, at Earth's main shipyard, the ESS Guardian prepared for its maiden voyage. Captain Lisa Franklin, who had served as Susan Blackwell's second-in-command before, taking leave just before the Horizon's final mission, stood on the bridge. "All systems ready, Captain," reported her first officer, a young Narathi named Telvin. Lisa looked around at her crew, humans working alongside Narathi and members of other species, including 2 young Velrans who had opposed their government's actions. Dr. Ryan Howard, the ship's chief diplomat, joined her at the viewport as the ship moved away from the station. "Strange to think that all this began with a genocide," he said quietly, "and ended with the strongest alliance the galaxy has ever known." "We didn't abandon our culture when we went to war," Lisa replied as Earth grew smaller behind them. "We defended its most fundamental principle, that life has value, regardless of species, and that principle is worth fighting for." The Guardian accelerated to full speed, heading out to its first assignment, monitoring a border dispute that could, if left unchecked, escalate into something worse. Behind them, Earth continued to rebuild and heal, stronger for having faced its greatest test, proud of having stood against genocide when no one else would, and ready to ensure such horrors would never happen again. Humanity had shown the galaxy that being cultured did not mean being weak. It meant knowing when to fight, for what mattered most.